folks, and welcome to another episode of Michael in the Backyard. We have the surgeon's table cleared here. We've got a oldie but a goodie favorite of mine to work on. Okay, I like working on things, but when it comes to my normal, let's call it dailies, I like to maintain them and keep them going, but working on them, I guess I do enjoy it from the standpoint I get to drive the value back out of it. What are we talking about here today? Well, let's take a look at my 2011 Impala. Now, we're not going to be working on the brakes, but look at them brakes. They're pretty rusty. My car has been sitting for approximately 2 months at this point. I parked it because the stain that it leaves underneath it, and the stain got bad, I would say a little quicker than I thought it would have or should have, or I don't know what I'm trying to say, but I parked it in the garage one day, and I should say for a weekend, and lo and behold, there was a big puddle underneath it, so I stopped driving it. We're gonna check it real quick here and just see if all the fluid levels are where they should be before I start it back up again. It's been sitting in this same spot. She's due for an oil change. She's down about 1/4 quart. But everything, the stain that was on the ground was red, which means transmission fluid. So I want to pull this out. Transmission fluid is full and clean there. And let's all just say, we all know that a 3-foot diameter stain can be a result of 3 tablespoons of liquid. Now, I haven't started this up for 2 months. I ain't done nothing to it. I ain't done nothing. Yep, that's proper English, Michael. I do love this car. This is one of my favorite cars of all time. Uh-oh. Been sitting too long. Dang. Apparently 2 months is too long. The battery is clickety-click. That's a shame because the battery's not that old. Jump pack to the rescue. Jump pack to the rescue. I hope. All right, let's see if that's got enough juice to do it. Oh, we're running. She's smooth as always. I'll back it up here and show you what I'm talking about. Oh, brakes are stuck just a little bit. As you can see here, it's wet from the rain, but right around through here, that's a drainage. It's a drainage stain. Something's leaking from my car. You know, you're in the front yard, getting in the car, took the remote for my shop, barely bumped it. I had to drive halfway to the shop here in order to get it to close, but I just barely bumped it. And the garage door just opens up. I'm like, come on, man. I mean, I want you to close, then I have to drive almost to it. I could have walked. All right. We're gonna get this thing fully warmed up, circulate its blood, as it were, because I got the change engine oil soon light on, and that information says oil life remaining 0. So I've driven it to where it is to 0%. I don't know what you guys normally do, but on the oil life management system in my we got a lump. These tires have been sitting a while. Wow. We got a kid rolling here. It sounds bad. Nothing. Vehicles don't like to sit, folks. Vehicles like to be exercised, and when they sit, they deteriorate. That's why the old 04 Jeep Wrangler we have, I like to start it up at least every 2 weeks, then take it out for a spin, get its blood circulating and whatnot. So what's the stats on this old Impala here? It's a 2011. I got 204,000 miles, 204,062 miles. And let's put the brakes on a little bit here so we can get some of that rust off them brakes. Rust gets is extra friction, helps it bite. But so my plan is warm this up good so I can change the oil. We're gonna pull it into the shop onto the ramps, and then we're gonna take a good long look at it to make sure that the see if I can see that leak underneath, see what's causing the massive amount of leaking that's going on underneath there. Okay, this is a safe place to turn around. I can't see cars coming from either direction. That should work. Perfect. Definitely gonna have to clear out some more stuff before I bring the King Ranch in here, just if I want to be able to work on it without having to go outside to change my mind. Let's see, I want to get it in just deep enough I can close the door, but leaving plenty of front end room here. Oh, let's not hit anything. Not chip any more paint than we have to. Deploy the creeper. Where did my oil changing tub go? Here it is. As I'm looking under here, I see some wetness here that's oil. I'm looking for red. Is there any red stuff anywhere here, you know? Ooh, that's hot on the fingers. Well, I was exploring under here with my light, and I could see the red transmission fluid hanging off the heads of these bolts here, a little bit of it. And then I noticed there wasn't any hanging off the head of this bolt because it's missing. It is missing. And then I checked the tightness on these back here, and I wouldn't call them extremely tight. So we're gonna have to, I think that bolt, I stuck a pick in there, and I think the bolt's broken off. The head's gone, which that's kind of weird, I thought. I'm almost positive. Well, I know I put all the bolts in. I've never stripped one of these out. That's blowing my mind. So we're gonna do a little, we're gonna go ahead and change the transmission fluid in this thing. Yep, that's what we gotta do now. Well, we're gonna go ahead and pull all the bolts out now, and nothing there is too crazy tight. Plus, I got to get a replacement bolt, obviously. It's been about 30,000 miles since my last transmission fluid changed. I normally do it about every 50, but you know, as long as I got to try to fish a broken bolt out of here. That's just strange that one of them just was broke. Did not expect to see that at all. I expect to see maybe a loose one or something, but my goodness. Now what I like to do is we're going to take all these bolts out. This got it. Transmission fluid jobs are just messy. But we're going to see if we can get this thing to kind of drop. Leave these bolts here. Drop all these out and let this thing kind of drop down this way, and see if we can just, you know, catch most of the mess, I hope. Impact style tools, always check the direction before you put it on the first bolt, because I did that years ago. on an old, whoops, it's dripping right on my light. Are you kidding me with that? I don't need that. I don't need that. Let's put that right there instead. Looks like it's gonna go out the back first no matter what I do. Am I gonna be able to catch it all? Probably not. Doggone it. Let's keep going. Guess it's gonna come out the back. My jack stands right there in a not a great spot. There we go. Whoa. I'm catching most of it. I think we're gonna be patient, let that just drip right there while we got some control. Maybe I'll back this one more off. Oh, good. That's the rest of it going everywhere. Oh, man. Well, it's the next morning, and you can't tell by looking at it, but it's just raining. Been raining all morning. Lots of rain. Perfect day to be in the shop. Getting the old Impala back on the road. So, we discovered the broken bolt. And I want to show you something here in the pan. One of these holes don't look like the other, does it? Look at that one. It is got a lot of rust around that hole right there. The rest of them don't. I wouldn't say rust. It's like a surface discoloration of sorts. That tells me that bolt has been broken off for a while, which is kind of interesting, which allowed moisture and other stuff to creep up into that area. And that's where my drip was coming from. And I'll show you something else that's interesting I just noticed this morning. So as you know, I changed the oil, and I had a little piece of foil that I didn't pick up last night. And that foil had just, you couldn't even see oil on it. But look at what it did there. So that just lets you know how much, when you see spots on the driveway, how, let's say, exaggerated the leak can be. There was nothing showing up on my dipsticks anywhere from oil leaking. It was such a small amount, and I don't know how long it's been leaking. But the pan, here again, let's look at the pan. The pan, this has only had 30,000 miles on it, but I haven't cleaned this yet. And you can see, this is as clean as a transmission pan gets. And this is a transmission that has 204,000 miles on it. Now, the big mystery that I had to sleep on last night is how I was going to get this bolt out. I took a punch. I actually drilled a hole through the middle of the bolt. And then I found out the bolt was a little bit more tempered on the outside, so there was no chance of drilling the next size hole through it. So then I got my welder out, and I welded a little nub on the end of it. And then after I welded the nub, I welded a nut onto that nub, and hopefully it looks like it's working. It's tight, but it's coming out of there. Still hot? Nope, it's cooled off enough. We got it out of there. Sweet. Surface looks good, everything looks great. I just got to get another bolt now. So I'll take one of my old bolts with me to the Napa store. We got to get us a gasket. I've already got a filter, believe it or not, a filter and 8 quarts of fluid. And I'll get me a gasket, because the other gasket was a little bit rough, let's call it. All right, we're gonna wipe this down. I'm gonna scrape around here a little bit just to get any kind of roughness off of here around the edges where the gasket, on the outside of the gasket area. So the new gasket has a good chance. Nice thing about the bolt being out is I can start the reassembly process, which is awesome. New filter. Pop that baby back up into place. There we go. Perfect. Now let's just keep in mind these bolts were 40 cents a piece and there's 20 of them, so you know we're talking $8 worth of bolts. And I think they're actually, the other bolts were an 8.8 and these are a 10.8, so I think these are a higher grade bolt. Not always sure that always means better, but that's what I'm gonna have in here, that's for sure. And then I don't run these down with a power tool. I always like to do by hand, get a good feel on it. That's why I don't understand how the one broke. Doesn't make a lot of sense to me, just for the simple fact these things don't have a lot of torque on them. And all the bolts around it, you know, were not what I would call crazy tight. They could have used a little eat on each one, and I'll do that on this one after I run this a while. Next oil change, most likely, I'll make just a double check, you know, 6,000 miles later. I'll look at it again after we immediately start it up and run it for sure, just to make sure there's no immediate problems, but I don't know, this one kind of blew my mind a little bit to have that broken bolt. And it actually came out when I took that out. It actually felt a little snug in there, but these bolts here are exposed on the backside, so there's debris and stuff that can get in there. Is it a case that moisture got? I don't think that's the case, but moisture got in there from the backside and settled down in there and froze and popped the head off of it last winter? I don't know. I don't know. That's the only thing that makes sense to me that could have possibly happened. And I say possibly happened. Now this is hilarious. I bought, what was it? 11 bolts at one place. And I bought 10 bolts at the other place. That should have gave me 21 bolts. So I should have had one extra. And as I go around here, I'm one short. How can that be? Did I set one down over here? All that flipping stinks. Well, I never counted them. I trusted that they counted properly. We'll use one of the old ones, I guess. One of these bolts is not like the other. One of these bolts are not quite the same. This old car ain't gonna know what to do having a fresh transmission and oil change and 19 out of 20 bolts being brand new. This is gonna, I might get 2 more miles to the gallon just because it's happier now. I don't know. Like I said, keep in mind, this is how I tighten up all my transmission pans. I've never used an impact to tighten them. I might use an impact like one of them ratchets that don't have a lot of torque to them. Not even an impact ratchet, just to run them down quickly. But then I always give them a final feel by hand. The way these gaskets are designed, you know, I used to love the ones that were on my old 93 Lumina. They were a metal gasket and you tighten them down and they had a built-in spacer. And so the rubber did all the work it's supposed to do and you just snugged them nice and tight against that spacer. You know, nothing crazy. These are just little bolts. But it did a great job. And they were reusable. When you had to replace them, they were like $75. Versus this was like 30 some bucks for a filter and gasket. But just the gasket alone. And I'm like, no way those gaskets are reusable. And sure enough, I put I did reuse it one time after that, because after I just saw what they were, how they were designed, and never had a leak. All right, here's where I just go around and I'm give everything a kind of an equal snugging. You can tell I've never over tightened these bolts too, because if you go on the back side of the pan, none of these are humped up at all. And this is a pretty sturdy pan as far as thicknesses go. What's the torque spec on a 4T65E transmission pan? Fun fact, I was just reading the paperwork that came with this particular gasket, and they claim that this is a reusable gasket too. Huh. Who'd have thunk? Now, according to what I looked up online, these are supposed to be torqued to 10 to 12 foot-pounds, which would be like 100 to 144. I should say 120 to 144 inch-pounds. Because I don't have a foot-pound torque wrench that goes this light. And here I am holding on the wrench like this. I got most of it hanging out, so I can't put, you know, and get a good feel on it without getting crazy. All right, we're gonna call that good. All right, all that was left to do is pull your dipstick out right there and find your favorite long funnel. I'll show you the funnel I like to use. And I've already dumped the 8 quarts in there. But I got a funnel that looks like this. I've kept it for just this occasion. It necks down just like that, fits right in the transmission fill area perfectly. The other thing I like to do with all my funnels, I don't know, how do you guys do your funnels? I keep mine in a plastic container like this. I used to have one of my funnels I had that had a lid on it here that kept it as my clean funnel. But I put some paper towels in the bottom, and I got something with a lid on it. That fits up with the rest of my stuff up here on my shelf. Just like that. And it says funnels on it, number 24 funnels. And I do that because every time I go to grab a funnel, I've got a clean funnel that has drip dried and is dust free. I can just grab it and use it. Now, how do I know it takes 8 quarts? Because this isn't my first rodeo on this particular car. As you can see here, we have changed the transmission fluid several times. So every time I've changed the transmission fluid, I wrote the first time I changed transmission fluid on any vehicle, I write down how many quarts it took. So next time I don't have to guess. And because not all of it's, the information out there is spot on, but I know what it took to do this one to get it dead on. And I changed it at 52,000. I've changed it at 103. I changed it at 124,000. That's when I did the shift solenoid situation. I got the shifting problem fixed. I did it at 174 because that was, 50,000 miles later. And because of this leak, I have now done it at 2,004 or 204,000. So now I know exactly when I need to do it again. I'll probably do it 30,000 to 50,000 miles from here. But that's how I keep track. And people are like, oh, I can't believe you're right on paint pen underneath the hood of your car. Who cares? It's my car. Some people get a little crazy about that. It's not a show car. It's my work car. It's my workhorse. I've used this thing like a truck. This Impala has hauled a lot of stuff, including a major amount of outboards to my house in the trunk of it, because it does have a pretty spacious trunk. So the good news is we're about ready to fire it up. We're going to clean up all the stuff underneath it. Last night when I went to bed, before I went to bed, I had my, get down here and show you. This thing was an oily mess underneath here. So I laid down a bunch of towels. You can still see an oil spot back underneath that jack stand right there. But the oil pan was there catching all the drippages, and I ended up I just shoved a bunch of these rags underneath it, let it soak up overnight, came back the next morning, the floor was practically completely dry. So these things soaked up a lot of fluids, and left me with a much cleaner situation. Now we got to pick up my tools, my welding helmet and stuff like that we use to get everything done. Everything's clean and tidy under here. We'll get the jack stands out, let her on the ground, and we'll fire it up. Make sure we don't have any leaks. Alrighty, folks, that concludes this episode of Michael in the Backyard. Transmission's leak-free, full, everything's working like it should. We'll check it. I'll drive around in it for a day, and we'll check it again. The boss and I need to run some errands in town, and I'll check it when I get home while it's hot and idling and make sure everything's full where it needs to be. Reason you see it turned around now, the back end's up on car ramps, is because in an upcoming video, I've got a little plan to add, put a little addition back here on the back of the Impala. If you watched all my other videos, you might, or maybe I've already talked about it. Hard to say. I say a lot of things. But hope you guys enjoyed this. Hope you found it informative and helpful. I am so glad to discover the leak. Now I can park my car, I can drive it to work daily, and save myself some fuel money, for sure. And riding yet back in the old classic Impala. Don't get me wrong, I love the King Ranch. It's a great truck, but for a commuter, car is better for commuting when it comes to being economical. And let's see how many more miles we can get on this old beast. It should be good. I should be able to go to 300,000. I mean, I put 90,000 mile tires on it at 192,000 miles. So that's feeling pretty optimistic about things, isn't it? All right. You guys be good to one another. This is Michael saying, if it ain't broke, fix it till it is. We'll see you on the next video if I'm lucky. Be good to one another out there, and get your hour a day in. Hour a day, move your projects forward. I've got one more repair done. I'm going to bring my 07 Jeep Liberty in here next, because after I did some research here, I had to order some parts before I could do my next little thing on the Impala. And we're going to bring the Liberty in here because I think I got a bad lower control arm ball joint or something. I hear this clunk-de-clunk-clunk, and it's gotten worse. Used to be occasionally when I was in the backyard on some rough terrain, I'd hear it, but now I'm hearing it in town, and that's a good indicator that things have gotten worse. So I got the clock on the wall over there. I didn't start it today, but I guarantee you I got my hour in yesterday, I got my hour in today, and that's usually more than an hour. Sometimes it takes an hour just to get things set up so I can turn the camera on and get everything, I wouldn't call it staged, but to a point where it's more entertaining for you folks to watch. All right, I'll get this thing off the ramps, put my ramps away, run the vacuum over the floor one more time, and bring in the next victim. I'm out. The Impala, I missed it. So I brought the, as you guys know, I brought the 05, yeah, 05 King Ranch home from me for vacation. And that's been my daily since I've been back. And it gets right at 15.1 miles to the gallon. 15.1, 15.2, driving back and forth to work and whatnot. And, which, in this car, you know, it gets, right now it's at 26.9. So I'd rather commute back and forth to work with this versus the King Ranch. And the air conditioner blows cold in here as always. That's good. That's real good. But I want to get this back on the road because I got to do some work on the old King Ranch. The engine on the 5.7 or 5.4 Tritons have two well-known issues with them. One of those issues is the spark plugs on the previous generation to what I have would blow out. And their answer was to put this stem on the end of it past the threads that will get stuck in the heads, so there's no fear of your spark plugs blowing out, but there you will sometimes break that piece off in the head, and there's a special tool that I had to purchase to do that as well. So I'm preparing, bought timing gears, timing chain set on those. The guides wear out on them, and I ain't kidding you, I put 4,000 miles on it since I've had it, and it was a lot quieter 4,000 miles ago, but it also spent a lot of time for the last 3 years, I think it was 3 years, I may be a little bit wrong, It was part of an estate, and then finally my dad was able to purchase it from the guy that was selling it, and got a smoking deal. I'm not complaining at all. Smoking deal. Truck's completely awesome. Love the ride of it, love the looks of it, and it's going to be a good addition to the fleet, as it were. So I ended up, we got to put a timing chain in it. So those timing chains go, spark plugs blow. And on mine, the spark plugs don't blow, but they blow to pull them out. You could break them all off. You could break 1 out of the 8 off. You could break none off. But everybody I've watched and studied said, you will break at least one. Some of the people that are professionals are saying you break off as little as 1, as many as 4. So when I get to that job, I'm going to bring you guys along with me. So, but we're going to run to the next town over, get me some good gasoline, fill this thing up to the brim. Then we're going to pull it in and get busy on this, because I got to get this back on the road. I've got to be able to drive this on a regular basis again. And the truck will sit a little more than the car does. Don't get me wrong, I'll still use the car. And then the other thing I want to do, if you guys have been following along in the video I just released possibly last week from this video on the Hemiway bike, I want to put that bike rack on the back of this car. And this car needs a receiver hitch. It won't be towing a trailer. I'm not doing anything stupid like that, but I will put the e-bike bike rack so I can put that receiver hitch on there, so I can put that on here, because this is a lot more economical to drive places, to go biking on some bike trails other than the ones just nearby me. Long-term goals. Yeah, lots of long-term goals. All right, let's set the cruise here. I missed you, Impala. You're still my bestest friend. Now, if you guys want to go ahead and skip ahead to the Impala's in the garage, that's fine. But I was gonna talk a little bit about, I have all my vehicles. My newest car that I own is a 2011 Impala. The oldest car I own is a 55 Dodge. Of course, that one's a project. Everything else is in the, what do I got? An 04, an 06, and an 07, and an 05. So, and there's a reason behind that. I read an article many, many years ago that said the reason you may be broke might be sitting in your driveway. And I'm going to go off memory here, but I'm going to also go off of what I've done myself. But there's a reason the government will reimburse you when you travel for business so many cents a mile. I think it might be upwards of 60 cents a mile at the time of this taping. And but that's considering what your cars cost today, what it costs to maintain, what kind of fuel consumption it has, to make sure you're getting reimbursed for everything on your car. Well, a lot of people say, that's awesome, I can make money driving my car doing that. And you can, to a certain degree, depending on your gas mileage, how big your car payment is, and whatnot. But anyway, my goal with my vehicles, except for, let's call it the 04 Wrangler I have, it's a collector's edition for me. It's not going to be something I'm trying to drive the value back out of like everything else I own. But my goal is to get things so my vehicles cost me less than 15 cents a mile. And that's purchase price divided by mileage over time, So it's the purchase price divided by the miles I put on it, and how many cents per mile is that compared to what I paid for it, right? I paid $1,000 for it. I drive it 1,000 miles. That's $1 a mile. You drive it 2,000 miles, now it's down to 50 cents a mile. You see where I'm going with this? I think I got that math right. Going off my head, trying to drive and focus and talk. Okay. But anyway, my goal is always to get my cars down to 50 cents a mile. So I've kept track of all my cars, the cost of the purchase cost, what I sold it for, but not the general maintenance part of it. So I'm gonna leave that part of it out. Some of my cars I did track how much I had into it. Say for instance, when I bought the car and I had to put say $2,500 in it to get it roadworthy, That I did include in the cost of the car, the price of the car, and this number I'm about ready to give you. But since I've been driving, since I was 16 years old, I had my first car, I have spent less than $70,000 on car my whole life. And that's why, you know, people say, you know, why do you drive the old cars? Well, that's why. I like to keep that disposable income not going toward, well, as soon as you turn it into your paychecks into payments, you don't have disposable income shrinks really quick. So I like to maintain maximum disposable income and keep my, let's just call it my A to B vehicles, and the cars and stuff are a service animal for me. I'm not a slave to my vehicles, as it were. Some people slave on their vehicles. I like to drive them, and I like to use them, and I maintain them properly. But so something to think about, because you say these people, some things in the article we're talking about, that people are buying their cars, they buy new cars, brand new cars. Okay, huge depreciation right there to overcome when it comes to getting your value, driving your value back out of it. And then in 2 years, they traded it on another new vehicle, and then another new vehicle. So the reason you might be broke could be sitting in your driveway. And some people are upside down, and the way people lend money and do things and finance their cars for 8, 9, 10 years now blows my mind. Everything I have sitting in my driveway is paid for. There's no debt on any of those vehicles. So, and I'm happy about that. So, anyway, I don't know, how do you measure your value on your vehicles? There again, when I get a car, if I did buy a car and I had a payment on it, you know, if I had a 5-year loan on it, I paid it off in 3. Payments on cars drive me crazy. Now, my Harley I had what was that, a 1998 Ultra Classic Electric Glide I bought in like 2003, and I had a loan on that. That payment didn't bother me because it was recreational. If I was making payment on a boat, that wouldn't bother me because that's recreational, and that's just one of those things you let yourself have, and you know it's not gonna ever be what I want to call using the entire value back out of it, maybe, as it were. So anyway, that's my little spiel there. This may still be in the video, I may cut it out, but just made it to the other town here. We're going to get out, top off my fuel, and get back home and see what we can figure out what's going on underneath this beast. Some of you might ask, why did you drive a whole town over what's 7 miles away? It's going to get the transmission fluid warmed up good. It's going to get the engine fluid warmed up good. It's going to get my brakes de-rusted well. It's going to get the tires back to being round. And it's about 20-some cents cheaper a gallon over here than it would be at my local conglomerate. And I can support the local folks here with this unmanned gas pump, as it were. So lots of pluses, lots of reasons behind it. You can justify anything if you just think about it long enough.